English made easy. Hey guys! Bored of those vocab lists? Me too. At 1 Degree North Companion, we're turning wordly wise into an adventure to make learning actually interesting. Let's jump in.
You know, it's funny how sometimes just one single word can completely unlock a hidden world. And today, that world is Thailand. But what you're about to see is that it's not just one world. No, it's a place of dramatic, colliding contrasts.
Okay, so to really start to get Thailand, you kind of have to hold two powerful and very different words in your head at the same time: splendor and squalor. I mean, you go to the capital, Bangkok, and you see this breathtaking splendor of golden palaces, shimmering temples. It's just magnificent. But then, and this is the crazy part, sometimes just a few streets away, you find people living in unimaginable squalor. And getting a handle on that contrast, that's the real key to unlocking what this country is all about.
See, the thing is, Thailand isn't just one single, uniform place. Not at all. It's more like a collection of 4 totally distinct worlds all crammed together. Each one has its own color, its own climate, its own story. So if you really want to see it, you got to look at the pieces.
So let's dive right in. We're going to go way beyond those picture-perfect postcards to discover the real, complex, and honestly fascinating country that's waiting just beneath the surface. You know, before any great exploration, you've got to have the right tools. And for us, that means having the right words. Think of these words as our compass and our lens. They're going to help us see this incredible country with so much more clarity. Okay, first up, let's talk about the word horde. Its journey through history it's fascinating. It actually comes from an old Turkish word, ordu, which meant camp or army. You've probably heard it used to describe those vast Mongol armies that swept across Asia, right? Well, fast forward to today, and we use it to talk about the hordes of tourists that flood the streets of Bangkok. It's the exact same idea at its core, a massive group of people on the move. All right, next up, sanctuary. This one comes from the Latin word sanctus, which means holy. So originally, a sanctuary was a holy place, like a church or a temple, a spot so sacred that even criminals couldn't be arrested there. Pretty cool, huh? Over time, the meaning expanded from just a safe place for people to any place that offers protection. Think a wildlife sanctuary, a safe harbor for animals. And one last thing here, a quick but really important distinction. The verb to inhabit, that's the action, right? It's what you do. And an inhabitant, the noun, is the person or animal doing the living. So you could say tigers inhabit the jungle, which makes a tiger an inhabitant of the jungle. Simple enough, but trust me, it's a super important detail for where we're going next. Okay, so now that we've got our linguistic toolkit ready, let's put it to work and see how these words help us understand Thailand's totally different worlds. First stop, the country's extreme, and I mean dramatically different climates. So when you think of Thailand, you probably don't picture this, right? But believe it or not, the whole northeast of the country is surprisingly arid. We're talking a sun-baked landscape, cracked earth. It is a world away from those lush, tropical images we all have in our heads. But then, you travel south and bam, you're in a completely different reality. Here, the air is thick, it's wet, it's just deeply, deeply humid. The southern rainforests aren't just soaked with rain. There's this constant moisture that just hangs in the air. There's this quote from a traveler that just captures the feeling perfectly. The humidity, you know, that moisture in the air, is so intense that the slightest activity makes you sweat, even just standing still. It's an environment that feels alive and, well, really, really wet. And what's so fascinating is how these extreme climates create completely different landscapes. And those landscapes, the terrain, that in turn decides what kind of life can actually thrive there. And the word we use for all those surface features is terrain, which comes straight from the Latin word for land. So if you go to northwest Thailand, the terrain is super rugged and mountainous. And these high-altitude forests, they create this really unique home for some of the country's most elusive wildlife. So you see, the specific terrain totally dictates its inhabitants. You've got tigers that inhabit the remote, rugged mountains. Then, in the flatter, more rural spots, you'll see water buffalo grazing in the rice paddies. And down in those humid southern rainforests, well, the variety of species is just staggering. Which brings us to our next word, incredible. And it means exactly what you think. Something so amazing, it's almost hard to believe. That perfectly describes the biodiversity of southern Thailand. I mean, we are talking about 1,000 species of butterflies. And get this, these rainforests are inhabited by the world's smallest mammal, the Kitti's hog-nosed bat. It weighs just 2 grams. I mean, come on, That's truly incredible.
But you know, these landscapes aren't just carved out by nature. They're shaped by history. Every single patch of land has a story to tell. And if we look close enough, we can start to see how those stories have shaped the Thailand we know today.
Let's start with a question about the capital. Anyone who's ever been to Bangkok knows the traffic is, well, it's legendary. But why? Why is it so incredibly hectic? Well, the answer is actually hidden in the city's terrain. See, Bangkok used to be known as the Venice of the East. It was a city built on water, where canals were the main streets. But then there was this massive push to modernize, and most of these canals got filled in and paved over to become roads. The result? That tangled, chaotic, and famously hectic street grid you see today. It's a modern city literally built on the ghost of its own waterways. That's where tradition and progress collide, for real.
And this story of transformation is such a perfect example of how human choices can completely reshape a landscape. For decades, the forests up in the Northwest were the heart of a massive lumber industry. But then, after a nationwide ban on logging back in 1989 to stop an environmental collapse, these same forests have been totally reborn. Now, they're protected wildlife sanctuaries. They're offering shelter to those same elusive tigers we were just talking about.
So the big takeaway here is that Thailand is a land of extremes. And nowhere is that more obvious than in the Central Plains. Thanks to this incredibly fertile soil from the rivers, this region has an absolute abundance of rice. It's the country's rice bowl. It feeds the whole nation and makes Thailand one of the top exporters of jasmine rice in the entire world.
So, we've journeyed through Thailand's words, its climates, and its hidden stories. We've seen how all these distinct pieces come together to create this complex, beautiful whole. And now it's your turn to be the explorer.
Just think for a second about the different worlds we've explored. Using the words from our journey, where do you feel like you truly belong? Would it be in the quiet sanctuary of a rural village, or right in the middle of the vibrant, hectic energy of a massive city? There's no right or wrong answer here, just what feels true to you.
And for your final challenge, I want you to just look out your own window. How would you describe the terrain where you live? Try to use at least 3 words from our expedition today. Is your world more arid or humid? Do you live in a hectic urban landscape or a quiet rural sanctuary? Go on, see your own world with an explorer's eyes.
Hope you guys enjoyed that last lesson. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Ready for more? The next one starts right now.
Have you ever just looked up at the sky and seen something impossible? Something huge and silent, just hanging there? Well, today, we're going to talk about a totally different way to fly. We're getting to know the gentle giants of the sky, the blimps. I mean, just picture it, a 200-foot-long billboard gliding silently over your head. It's not like a plane roaring by, it's more like a floating spectacle. It's designed to make you stop and stare, but when you see one, it's impossible not to wonder,
Yeah, how does that colossal machine defy gravity so gracefully? How does it stay aloft and not just, plummet back to Earth? Well, the secret isn't magic, it's science. And it all starts with understanding a few key words.
To really get how these giants work, we first need to get the lingo down. Think of these as the words that unlock the whole mystery.
Okay, first up, a classic mix-up. Stationary versus stationary. The one we're interested in, with an A, means not moving. And here's a cool little tidbit to remember it. The one for writing paper comes from old London street vendors called stationers, whose market stalls were, yep, you guessed it, stationary. They didn't move.
Next up is elusive. You know that feeling when something's just out of reach? Hard to find, hard to pin down, hard to explain. It could be a really complex idea, a shy animal, or, well, even a legendary monster.
and get this, a blimp was actually used to search for the elusive Loch Ness Monster. Seriously, and it actually makes perfect sense. A blimp can do something a helicopter can't, hang almost silently over one spot for hours. It's the perfect tool for tracking something you don't want to scare away. So this brings us to the 2 basic ways a blimp moves. To propel means to push forward, which blimps do with a couple of engines. But their real superpower is the ability to hover, to just stay put right there in the air. That combination is what makes them so incredibly unique.
All right, now that we've got the language down, let's peek inside one of these gentle giants and see what really makes it tick.
When you break it down, a blimp is actually pretty simple. You've got the envelope, that's the gigantic bag that gets filled with gas, and then hanging underneath, you have the gondola. That's the cabin where the pilot and passengers actually ride.
Now, I want you to remember this number, just one number, 7. It's not random. It is the absolute secret to this entire operation.
And here it is. That huge envelope is filled with helium gas, and helium is 7 times lighter than the air all around it. That massive difference in density creates an upward push, called buoyancy. It's the exact same reason a log floats on water, just, in the sky.
But why helium specifically? Well, that's a lesson that was learned the hard way. The very first airships, the Zeppelins, used hydrogen. Now, hydrogen provides amazing lift, but has one tiny problem. It's incredibly flammable. The Hindenburg disaster in 1937 was a fiery, tragic lesson that put everyone's lives in jeopardy, and the world quickly switched to safe, stable helium.
So really, helium is the hero of this whole story. It doesn't burn, so the danger of fire is gone. Plus, if there's a small leak, the blimp doesn't just plummet. Because the air pressure outside is higher than inside, the gas leaks out slowly. It results in a nice, gentle descent. It's an unbelievably safe way to fly.
So, we know how it's built. We know why it floats, so let's talk about what it's actually like to fly one, and how they pull it all off up there.
This right here is the blimp's party trick. A plane has to keep moving forward to generate lift and stay in the air. A blimp, it can just stop. It can pause, hang there in the sky, and give you a view of the world that almost no one else gets to see.
And that ability to hover makes it the perfect stationary camera platform. You know those superb, sweeping bird's-eye views you see during big football games? That's the blimp. Its huge size makes it way more stable than a little drone, so you get those smooth, cinematic shots of everything happening down below.
Okay, so how in the world do you park something that's basically a giant balloon? Well, you don't really park it, you moor it. The ground crew guides the blimp's nose to a tall mast, which is usually on a truck. But you can't just tie it down tight. There's one more crucial piece to the puzzle.
The connection to the mast is on a swivel. This lets the whole blimp turn freely, basically acting like a giant weather vane. It's so important because it allows the airship to always point itself into the wind, which minimizes the stress on its structure. It just swings around as the breeze changes direction.
So we've seen how they're built, how they fly, and how they handle the wind. Now, I want to put you in the pilot's seat for a minute. Becoming a blimp pilot is a big deal. It's not something you just decide to do one afternoon. It's a skill you have to attain, a goal that takes a lot of hard work and dedication to finally reach. So let's just imagine for a second. If you could attain that position, sitting there on the gondola in complete control, where would you go? What would you want to see? Would you just hover over the Grand Canyon? Maybe follow a pod of whales along the coast? The possibilities are just incredible.
So I'll leave you with this challenge. Think about a superb goal that you want to attain in your own life. What's that elusive summit you're working toward? I think we can learn a lot from these gentle giants, about patience, about stability, and about quietly, gracefully reaching incredible new heights.
Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. I'll see you in the next one.